Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks went on reliable sources on CNN with Brian Stelter to discuss media bias against Bernie Sanders. Let's watch some of it here.
The facts are the superdelegates are largely on Clinton's side, and they're probably not going to move based on the interviews we've done with them. Why is it wrong for the media to acknowledge that on Tuesday night?
Because they aren't facts at all. So first, let's just acknowledge what are actual facts, that the superdelegates do not vote until the convention. In fact, if they're not at the convention, their votes won't get counted at all, which is almost never said on television. But the superdelegates are the establishment.
They're all establishment people, and they're all voting for Clinton. Only 46 for Sanders.
Now, Brian, you guys, and I mean CNN and all of the establishment press, totally tilted the playing field here from day one by counting those superdelegates, when in fact you know the superdelegates do switch their votes all the time. They switched it in 2008. Hillary Clinton had a 100 superdelegate lead, which completely vanished in 2008. So
was the
why
media
did you
wrong
count
in
them from day one, which was absolutely incorrect? It was in fact journalistic malpractice. Why did you guys do that?
So you're saying more information is not a good thing. We should hide people from the reality of what the superdelegates are thinking?
No. Brian, this is very important. If you say, hey, superdelegates are likely to vote this way, or they say they're voting this way, as an aside, that's perfectly fair. But if you count them in the official tally, when you know they can and often do switch their votes and have not voted yet, that is simply incorrect. That is not a fact. That is the opposite of a fact.
Pretty sure Brian Stelter broke a rib there. Pretty sure. Okay, that's inarguable. So I was fucking losing my mind over this from early on in the race. There are a lot of Bernie supporters who felt exactly the same way, but they would show on CNN very clearly, they'd say delegates, the delegate count, and they would have the superdelegates in there. Now, later on, after people piled on, they didn't get rid of the superdelegates, but they would show it in two separate ways. So first they would show it with the delegates, superdelegates in there, and then they would show the separate one where they would just show the pledged delegates. But the way the delegates you should be showing every step of the way here, especially early on in the race, what you should be showing is no superdelegates. No superdelegates. Because, like he mentioned, superdelegates don't vote until the convention. And also, they're undemocratic by their nature. So since they have the ability and the option to change at the convention to say, hey, as of right now, X number of superdelegates support Hillary versus Bernie. What you're doing is, since Hillary has so many more superdelegates, you're actually skewing the total delegate count, skewing the reality of the situation, making it seem like Hillary has an insurmountable lead from early on, and as a result of that, that actually suppresses the vote for Bernie supporters. Now, again, you might say, well, Kyle, that's an opinion. How do you know that for sure? No, it's actually a well-known phenomenon called the bandwagon effect, where people feel, don't ask me why, I think it's fucking crazy that people eventually say, oh, this person's winning, I'll go vote for this person. But there's some percentage of supporters that go, oh, it looks like it's insurmountable, looks like she's going to win, so if anything, more people go out to vote for her and fewer people go out to vote for Bernie. It disheartens people who are Bernie supporters. They did that from the very beginning. That wasn't a mistake. That wasn't a mistake. Just like CNN, for example, during the debates, when they would show the polls. They used to put the polls up. And Bernie Sanders would absolutely eviscerate her in every poll after every debate, sometimes winning 90% of the vote. Well, when it became too embarrassing for Hillary Clinton, because those are facts, they stopped showing the polls. They pulled some down from their website. I mean, this is insane bias. And then they do it with the superdelegates. She has 8 zillion superdelegates. He has -3. Put that up in the count. Make it seem like that's already the case. That's not the case because the superdelegates don't vote until the convention. They do not vote until the convention. Don't put them up there. Don't put them up there. And as he says, don't put them up there because it's accurate not to put them up there. You are biasing it for Hillary Clinton if you put them up there now because you're making people think that's already the vote tally. It's not. They don't count until the convention, and oftentimes they switch. They can switch based off extenuating circumstances. Okay. They're not done going back and forth yet. Let's watch more.
The Hillary delegates switched because Obama was going to win. In this case, we know the superdelegates are establishment figures, they're former governors and people like that are clearly pro-Clinton. Nothing's going to happen that's going to change their mind.
Again, not true. So Brian, you say
What
nothing's
could
going to
happen?
happen.
What's
Now,
going to happen? Tell me.
I can tell you exactly what could happen.
Are you wishing for an indictment?
Are for extraordinary. Hold on, they are for extraordinary circumstances. You know what would be extraordinary if one of the candidates were indicted? Of course. So you guys keep assuming there'll be no indictment. And Brian, I hear you have reliable sources. So tell me, do you have any sources inside the FBI or the State Department that have already told you that she is not going to get indicted? Because that would be news.
I do not. I cover media, not the FBI. But the indications at the moment are that she hasn't been interviewed by the FBI. I hear what you're saying about the indictment, but other than that, it seems to me you're misleading your audience, giving them more hope than they should actually have.
Okay. He just took the reality and flipped it on its head yet again. No, what he's trying to explain to you is you haven't been accurate all along. You have biased it in favor of Hillary Clinton. And when you say something like you just did, like, quote, nothing is going to happen that can change their mind, talking about the superdelegates, you made that up. Now, if Brian Stelter were to say, it is likely or overwhelmingly likely that nothing will happen that will make them change their mind, that's fine. That's a different statement. I totally agree with him. In fact, I'd be out here defending him and not defending Cenk if he had said, it is likely the case that Hillary Clinton becomes the nominee after New Jersey or whatever. If you frame it with probability in there, likely, words like that, that's a different thing. But when you come out there and say, we are going to declare the race for Hillary after New Jersey, when that's not true because the superdelegates haven't voted yet, and you say nothing is going to happen that can change their mind, that is false. That's not accurate. Because as Cenk rightly points out, he says, hey, she's under FBI investigation. I went through all the details of this email scandal for you guys, and there is something there. She is hiding something. There's no question about that. Whether or not there'll be an indictment is a separate question, but we know there's an investigation going on right now. If there's an indictment before the general election, it would be absolutely unbelievable and mind-blowing and preposterous for the superdelegates to say, we're still going to push through the person who just got indicted. Dude, you can't run the country from a jail cell. Now, we're talking about, civil issues here. There are separate criminal issues. We don't need to get into all the details of the different cases. But if you have somebody who's under FBI investigation, I mean, imagine if the roles were reversed and it was Bernie Sanders under FBI investigation, and it was Hillary Clinton in Bernie Sanders' position today. What would the calls be? I think, honestly, just the fact that there is an investigation, the media would say, this is irresponsible of you to still be in the race. You got to get the fuck out. Even though you're leading, there's an FBI investigation on you. I mean, are you really going to risk a Trump presidency because of your narcissism? Because you want to be president so much? You're that selfish? They're willing to risk turning the country over to Donald Trump because you can't understand that you're a flawed candidate because you're under FBI investigation. Everybody would scream at Bernie to drop out if he was under FBI investigation. When it's Hillary, it's not even mentioned. It's not even mentioned. And then also, Stelter is just disregarding other arguments that Bernie can make at the convention. So, for example, Bernie can say, hey, this entire process was wrong from the beginning and not rigged, but leaned Hillary from the beginning because, for example, so many primaries were closed. Closed primaries favor her. When you don't allow independents to vote, it's more likely to go to her. Well, when you allow independents to vote, it's way more likely to go to me. And guess who you need in a general election to win? Independents. So he can argue, hey, these closed primaries tip the scale in her favor, so she has the ability to get through a primary, but a much lower chance to win the general election. And then that leads me into the next point he can make to the superdelegates. Look at the polls. In the most recent poll, Bernie Sanders beats Donald Trump by 15 points in a general election. Hillary Clinton loses by 2. That's unbelievable. To overlook that is madness. And even when you go to the average, so somebody can say, well, that's just the most recent polls. That's one poll. It could be an outlier, yada, yada. No. In the average, Bernie's up by 10.4 percentage points over Trump in a general. Hillary's up by 1.4%, which is basically a statistical tie. No. These are arguments he can make. Now, it probably won't work if he just uses those arguments. If there's no indictment, it certainly won't work. But he has the ability to make that argument. And if you call the race before then, you're yet again rigging it further in favor of Hillary, as you've done from the beginning when you put the superdelegates on screen when you shouldn't have and made her look like she had an insurmountable lead. You're going to call it too soon if you do what you want to do, and that again will not be true, and you'll be making an ass of yourself as you accuse the Young Turks of misleading their audience. You mislead your audience. I got one more clip for you.
Frankly, this is really exciting to say. For the first time in the history of this country, we're going to have a female nominee of a major party. I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat or Libertarian. That's something this country should note and acknowledge. And don't you think it's a shame that the Bernie Sanders talk is going to overshadow what we can all agree is a historic milestone?
I mean, look at the framing you just gave it, right? So I think Hillary Clinton is a completely pro-establishment candidate that will continue this corrupt system where private interests finance the elections. And so, but instead of looking at it as, hey, wait a minute, one guy hasn't taken that corrupting money and the other one has, you frame it as male versus female, and hence put me in a position where I'm forced to say, no, I don't think it would be historic because I think it's the same old establishment, whether it's a male, a female, or anything else. So the framing is all biased. And I'm not saying that because I think that you're liberal or you're conservative, you're pro-Hillary or not. It's just the establishment told us from day one, the superdelegates have already voted when they did not, and you tell us today to, hey, make sure you go away and you support the establishment candidate. The superdelegates vote at the convention. So for you guys to call it when you don't know what the circumstances are and those people have not voted yet, it is just simply incorrect. That is not journalism.
So you see what Stelter did there? When you get your ass handed to you on a silver platter every step of the way with every other point in the debate, at the end, he has nothing left. What card does he pull out? She's a woman. She's a woman! She's a woman! Cenk, she's female. She has a vagina. Do you not like women? I guess that you're not in favor of women being president. So then the conversation becomes, hey, has the media, has the system, has the process been fair to Bernie Sanders? The answer is no. So you can't win on the substance in that debate. You pivot to, she's a woman. She's a woman. Historic. It's historic. So now you don't think it's historic. I guess you don't think it's historic. So you just change the conversation completely. And by the way, this is what I like to call McFeminism. It's feminism that's about as real as the meat and the chicken nuggets. It's, hey, I will support a woman to the exclusion of everything else that should matter in a candidate, like policy substance. But by the way, test them on this too. Because that's the argument he's making. Hey, she's a woman. She's a woman. Shouldn't we all be happy? Is that the argument that people would be making if it was Carly Fiorina, who was the nominee on the Republican side, versus Bernie Sanders on the Democratic side? Or versus Joe Biden, or versus any other Democratic candidate who's male? Hey, look, she's a woman. She's a woman. Would Madeleine Albright still go out there and say there's a special place in hell for women who don't support women? Sarah Palin's the nominee. There's a special place in hell for women who don't support women. Now, please, support Sarah Palin over Joe Biden. Please, do it. No, if it was Michelle Bachmann, if it was Sarah Palin, if it was Carly Fiorina, all these preposterous arguments, I mean, if they're being consistent, they'd say, yes, I support them because they're women. Because they're women. And we can play the same card back on you, but we're actually intellectually honest, so we don't do that. But you want to play this game? Hey, are you anti-Semitic? Bernie Sanders would be the first Jewish American nominee. I guess you don't like Jews. I guess you don't want Jews to... I mean, that's historic. Wouldn't that be historic? I guess you don't think it's historic. Do you think it's historic? Say you think it's historic. You change the conversation. See what they did? I can't beat you on the substance, so she's a woman. Hey, woman card right here. Okay, well, he's Jewish. How about that? Are you an anti-Semite? I guess you might be an anti-Semite. So, understand, man, the debate is... Has the system, has the process been fair? Has the media been fair to Bernie Sanders? The answer to that is no. And when you say, hey, she's a woman, so leave it at that, dude, we all get it. We all want to have the first female president, but it needs to be the right one with the right policies. If it's Elizabeth Warren, I would knock people over running to the booth in order to vote for her. It's not Elizabeth Warren. And by the way, many people, including myself, I'm here in New York, I will likely be voting for Jill Stein in the general election, a woman. So you can't just pawn off, the Bernie supporters. Oh, I guess they're all just sexist, as so many articles have, some that we've covered on this show. The main point is policy. Are you in favor of getting money out of politics? Are you in favor of universal health care? Are you in favor of universal education? Are you in favor of stopping our dumbass interventions and stopping the military-industrial complex? Either you meet those criteria or you don't. This is what Bernie supporters care about. The process has not been fair to Bernie all along, and stop trying to smear them and pulling out the woman card at the last second when they point out that obvious truth.